is Bobby Umar. I'm here with Hannah Morgan, Richard Vanderblom. Very excited about having this conversation around content strategy and thought leadership. If you are joining in, by all means, share your comments below. Let us know, first of all, where you're from. Are you coming from North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Australia, or Asia? And then secondly, if you have any questions for the panel, you're more than welcome to put them in here. We'll try to get to a few. We can't get to them all of them, but we certainly would like to get to as many as we can. And of course, if you're liking the conversation, be sure to share the streams on your own platforms, whether you're watching this on LinkedIn. It's also being multi-streamed on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. So we are at lots of different places. So make sure you try to do the best you can to leverage that. I want to welcome both of you here today. I'm very excited to have you. And there's already people that are in the chat box sharing some pretty exciting stuff here. We'll start with some introductions. We'll start with you, Hannah. Please introduce yourself, and then I'll ask you to segue it over kindly to Richard.
Okay. I'm Hannah Morgan. I'm also known as Career Sherpa, and I have been helping people understand how to look for work better. I've been in all parts of the job search process. I've been a recruiter, I've been a hiring manager, I've been in HR, and I've worked for an outplacement consulting firm. So what I love doing is helping people understand this process so that they can make better decisions and get a job faster.
And Richard, over to you, sir.
So my name is Richard Vanderblom. I'm from the Netherlands, currently living in Spain. I have been using LinkedIn since 2005, started my own agency in 2009, and I provide LinkedIn consultancy and training to mid-size and corporate-size companies.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, guys. And guys, my name is Bobby Umar. I am a motivational speaker by trade, 5-time TEDx speaker. I've done 1,000 keynotes and workshops across 4 continents for the last 20 years. Now my primary goal is to help people land a TEDx talk, to elevate their personal brand and build their thought leadership. But I am also the founder of the TLB Club, which is a membership community that runs these monthly live streams. We also do weekly Zoom calls, and you're more than welcome to come by to check it out and see what we're all about. With that, let's get into the question. The topic today is content strategy for thought leaders. I guess I'll start with the first question, which is pretty obvious. Why is content strategy so important for thought leadership? I'll start with you, Richard, and then we'll go to
Hannah. Why is content strategy so important for thought leadership? Basically, because content is a way for you to emphasize and share the knowledge you have. It's also a way to offer touching points to your audience, because every post you create on LinkedIn or on your socials is an opportunity for them to engage, to get to know you more, to show interest in you. So I don't actually think, I know a lot of people who are a thought leader that don't have a very authentic, powerful content strategy.
Yeah, no, I agree. Hannah, what do you think?
I think people, I don't ever call myself a thought leader because I find that sort of put offish. I'm a curious person, and I love keeping up with what's going on in my industry, my niche. So the content strategy, for me, has always been one that has been a little reactive. What's happening because I'm in career job search stuff, what's happening in the marketplace, and what are people saying about that, and what can we do to be better at managing this process? So having content that is addressing the struggles, the challenges, the needs of my audience is what it's all about. So it's being in tune with what they need when they need it. And that's challenging because in my world, it's cyclical. People will get a job and then they won't need job search advice really until they need to look for a job again. So they fall off. But knowing when to give the right information and pay attention to the cues that are going on in our culture is important.
Yeah, I think for me, thought leaders out there are sharing content and they're driving the conversation. So, they are either speaking on stages or they're writing books or journals or articles. They're also creating content. So for me, the books, the journals, the content, and even doing videos on LinkedIn and whatnot, that's all part of the thought leadership aspect. So for me, that's why it's so important. And again, like even though I have questions for you guys, you're more than welcome to just pipe in and share your thoughts, and it's totally fine to interject or even disagree, which that'd be kind of a fun conversation to disagree on things. I would love to learn a bit more, and people are already commenting and sharing. Make sure you follow Richard and Hannah on LinkedIn, along with any other platforms they have. But people are already engaging in the comments, which is great. I would love to kind of understand a little bit about your content strategy over the years, because I know that like Richard talked about how he first started joining LinkedIn, then he launched his agency. Are there certain things where your content strategy has changed or evolved over the years? Maybe we'll go with you, Hannah, first, and we'll go to
Yeah.
Richard.
My content strategy absolutely has changed over the years. So I go so far back that all that was available to us was blogging at the time. There wasn't really, and then came Twitter, and then absolutely, and LinkedIn wasn't even really for content back when I started. So the the change really was, how do I take the content that is on my blog and put it into LinkedIn? And back in the day when I first started, it was just really giving a summary of the article and putting in the link, because that's what LinkedIn wanted. That's what we did. But and then we would promote speaking engagements that were in person in other parts of the world and other parts of the country. So it was such a different world. Like, people had to buy tickets, so you had to include that link to the ticket. And so it's been fun to see. It's a little overwhelming at times, but where we are today is so different from where we were when I first started out, given all of the advancements that LinkedIn has made with these lives. And there are just so many different platforms that people can be active on and can have content on. So it's knowing where you want to be and maximizing your time there, because you can't spread yourself across everything. And that was one of the challenges, because what you do on LinkedIn doesn't necessarily work on all the other platforms. And I know that might be something we talk about more, but my content strategy really has been, what can I do to bring awareness of me, but the topics that I'm talking about that other people are also great at talking about. So I'm always a believer in cross promoting and bringing attention to other great people who are voices with this other thoughts or similar thoughts to what is important to me and my audience.
And Richard, what do you think?
Well, my content strategy changed massively. So I went from, like I think we all did, sharing the boring stuff on LinkedIn to making it much more personal, making it much more lively. I also had a big change about 3 years ago when I decided that text only was not good enough anymore on LinkedIn. So I always did like a text post with one image, and that should do the job. It was a time that the carousel post emerged. We saw more videos coming, and I realized that what I used to think to be true, that only the content itself matters, is not entirely true. It's also the way how you wrap it, how intriguing, how interesting you make it, that also really can strengthen the message. So for all the people who followed me like for many years on LinkedIn, I'm sure they recognize that about 3 years ago, I came with a new way of sharing carousels. I have my couch talk with Richard, which is a video series. And that's all completely new to also adapt to like the new trend that is currently going on LinkedIn.
And I think for me, that's exactly what I would do, which is basically I would follow the trend. So, when I was on LinkedIn, and first I was on LinkedIn for a long, long time, wasn't really doing much with it. In fact, I was just sharing articles via Buffer 4 times a day. And then someone said, Bobby, ever since Microsoft bought it, you should probably post more things. So I started doing a daily kind of LinkedIn tip, and I started just sharing stuff. And by the 5th or 6th post, people started engaging, and I was like, this is pretty good. And then when LinkedIn launched videos, like, okay, videos, I like videos, let's do videos. And then they launched Livestream, let's do Livestream. And then they launched stories, I'm going to do stories. And then they got rid of it, which was of course very upsetting. And so whenever they bring in new things, a newsletter, when newsletters launch with creator mode, okay, let's do a newsletter. So I typically will follow the trend, because typically what happens is platforms like LinkedIn and others will put a lot of energy behind it. And so I usually try to follow that. But the same time, I think what I've evolved to understand is that you got to play to your strengths and don't worry about your weaknesses. So like I know like Richard's algorithm report, which everyone loves. Brenda Miller just said we love Richard's algorithm report. I mean, it talked about how great carousel posts were, and for the love of my life, I would try them and they would never work, and it took so much time, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. So I typically don't do them very often because it doesn't play to my strengths. My strength is in speaking, so for me, video is the way to go. So for me, I kind of follow the trend. Hannah, you were going to say something. What were you going to add?
Well, I was going to ask because I think they're playing to our strengths, right, is such an important thing. It's so important. Sometimes the trends don't align with that. Like, I don't love video. And so I've been so hesitant to go there. And I think that's true for a lot of people. And I think the other trend that Richard alluded to was, people are getting more personal on LinkedIn. And I have personally, I can't do that. I could, but I don't want to do that. So I think we find different ways of adapting to meet that, like the visuals. Like I loved how Richard went from the standard PDF of his stuff to making it more of a engaging carousel kind of thing, and that was awesome. So that's something that we all can pay attention to. What are the trends? What's working? What's going to get us more eyes and more interest, but playing to our strengths.
Yeah, I think that obviously we all have different strengths, but I also believe that there's certain things though that are must-haves, right? So I would argue, if I may, Hannah, that
Yes.
video is something that even if it's not your strength, you got to do it once in a while. So I'm like, just like have one video in your feature section that's like a 3-minute. This is what I'm all about. We're having that video profile that we had on LinkedIn. Please bring it back. I don't know why I took it away. That to me, that one thing just to show your personality. And here you are doing a live stream. So I think to me, like video is a must-have as part of your content strategy. I mean, what do you guys think about that? Are there certain things that are must-haves in a content strategy besides just the basic text post?
If you ask me, I don't agree with you that video is a must-have.
Okay.
I agree with you if video is a must-have if you are a TEDx speaker. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Then you need to have videos. Or like me, I'm a keynote speaker as well, not TEDx, but I do big events now. So people want to see me. They expect me to do videos because that's what they are like paying for whenever they book me as a speaker or you. But there are so many thought leaders who never will be on stage, okay? And they don't need video. They just need to make sure that they get their message across in a way that is authentic, in a way that resonates with their audience. And like you said, that also plays to their strengths because it can actually be counterproductive if you do a video and you don't feel comfortable with it and your network goes like, what? This doesn't look thought leadership-ish at all. You know what I mean? I do agree that you need to diversify your content strategy. That's for two reasons. First, for your human audience, because if you would only do video, as an example, Bobby, or if you would only do carousel posts, you miss a complete audience that has a different preference on how they consume content. So I am very aware that if I publish, for example, 2 carousels in a week, that my next posts are not going to be a carousel, that I'm going to do a video or a more extended text post. So to offer people a different way how they can consume content. The second reason is the algorithm. If you always have the same format, and I know a lot of people, they always have text with one image, text with one image, you actually bore the algorithm. So you get less reach. So if you diversify, you get more reach because you keep it lively. And I always advise my clients, choose the 3 formats you really love. I mean, there are 6, 7, okay? Choose the 3. Like for me, it's video, it's carousel, and it's a text post. Those are the 3. And if you look at my posts, 90% are those 3 formats. So yeah, that's my opinion on whether you should do video or not.
Let me adjust what I said, which is I'll say, look, just have one professional video made that is done by a professional and looks amazing, and that's it. Just have that one thing as part of your portfolio. But totally get it.
Agree on that.
Hannah, what were you going to say?
So I was going to say, like earlier in my career, right before it was so easy to create video, like um, th- th- I was getting speaking engagements without video, right? And I was so things have changed today, and maybe speaking engagements is not on the top of my list. So maybe that's one of the reasons why too. I'm also, but I totally get video is important and for so many reasons. And I love your point about diversifying. Can we talk about diversifying platforms too? Because I know so many people who are only active on LinkedIn and they don't have their own website or they don't have a newsletter. And my concern is if you don't have a way to directly access some of these people, what happens when something changes? Um, so what's the plan for that, Richard?
Well, you just mentioned a newsletter, so I can check that box, okay? Because I have an email newsletter, so that's good. You also mentioned a website. If you go to richardvanderblom.com, you'll find my personal website where you can book me as a speaker trainer. So I can tick those boxes. Where you cannot find me, or where I actually hope you will never find me, because I still have like a dormant account or something, is X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all those things. So for me, it's really a choice to leverage the social media network where I can find my clients, where I think that I perform the best. Although I now realize that I also launched a YouTube channel at the start of this year, but mainly to repurpose my video content. So, and back in the days, like more than 10 years ago, we started as a social media agency. So I can still remember that I was giving like Instagram training, Facebook training, Twitter training. And for me, it doesn't work because I am more of a specialist instead of a generalist. And I like to be seen as a specialist when it comes to LinkedIn lead generation, brand awareness. So for me, it's that in combination with the channels you have, because I really agree with you that you cannot build your entire castle on rented ground. That I totally agree with you.
And since you brought up Hannah, I mean, I'm a firm believer in multi-platform strategy, content strategy. Having built on Twitter first, then I moved to LinkedIn, and then I started building Instagram. And what I find is, number one, to Richard's point, diversity of audience. I attract people from Instagram and from Twitter that I don't attract from LinkedIn. I also find sales are different. It's a different process and beast on the other platforms than what I do on LinkedIn. So I find that really, really important. When you think about the big thought leaders out there like Gary Vaynerchuk or Bernie Brown or Simon Sinek, I mean, they're not just on one platform, they're on multi-platform. So as part of thought leadership, you have to think about those things in terms of doing. Now, one of the things I will say is that LinkedIn is my primary platform from which I then repurpose on the other ones, right? So the videos I make are for LinkedIn first, then I put them in the other platforms. And then and the other thing I'll say is that for a lot of platforms, the ones that I don't spend time on, like Pinterest and Tumblr, what I've done is I've set up accounts on everything, and then I say, here's where my website is, here's where you can find me, and this is where I post stuff. And that's a great way to actually have presence. And then people, because so the other day I went to Pinterest the other day. I said, wow, I have 1,000 followers. This is great. I had no idea. And so I do that on purpose because I know that people will find you wherever you might be. So I think that's a big part of strategy should be. But I think for me, 80% of my time is LinkedIn, and then for my primary, and then the other 20% I spend on the other platforms.
You mentioned repurposing content, and I think that that's a skill that thought leaders have, right? How can I make this, and whether it's the same, like I published an article, last month, how can I refresh this, repurpose this so it reaches a different audience or it reaches people it didn't reach the first time, whether that be on LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram, wherever. So that's, I think, one of the qualities of a good thought leader is how can I make this more digestible for a different audience or for my audience. There's so many skills that are going into this. Like you have to be a marketer, you have to understand LinkedIn algorithms. There's so much you need to know to be successful.
And I want to thank people for being part of the conversation. There's lots of people on the group here, lots of people listening in, and we're getting a bunch of questions. So here's a question that came up. What do you think about producing videos with the help and support of AI? What's your general opinion on using AI tools on LinkedIn, like Taplio or the other ones? Richard, what do you think?
Yeah, it's an easy question with, in my opinion, a not so easy answer, because if people say content creation AI, it can mean like really completely different things. So people who trust AI to create their entire content, publish the content directly from AI, I think that's really a very bad idea, because even though probably people are getting much more clever in how to prompt AI, never underestimate your human audience. I can tell from a mile off if a comment is made by AI or if a post is written by AI. And actually, I am sending one-on-one messages to people in my network whose content I really loved before. And now I see the content all starts the same. It's all boring. And I'm sending a message one-on-one like, hey, just to have it cleared. And I copy the post one-on-one. I don't do this in public. I copy the post and say, did you write this with AI? Because it's not you. It's not engaging. And they all go like, yeah, I'm trying and I'm having a pilot with a new tool. But please don't underestimate your audience, because I have been on LinkedIn for so many years publishing that people will notice if I turn to AI to create my entire content. Do I think that AI can be helpful for my content creation process? Yes, of course. And I use AI. For example, I'm not a native English speaker. So I use AI to like correct grammar, correct style. I also use AI to brainstorm with me on writing better hooks, on writing better endings, on changing the body of the content that I send and make it more attractive. Of course, I use AI. And then you have tools. It's funny because I think the question just mentioned Taplio, and that's also not a very easy answer. Why? Because Taplio on one side, they have an amazing engagement module, which actually makes it very easy for me to create a list of, for example, 40 preferred content creators. And instead of losing a bunch of time to go to the individual profile, see if they publish, I have a list that chronologically shows me all the posts of the last day. So I can really dive in and be very effective in commenting on the accounts or the creators that for me have the most value. But also Taplio has a module where you can do automated outreach, where you can do automated comments. And I stay as far as possible away from that module. So, there is no, in my opinion, there's no definition of AI and LinkedIn. There are so many like different ways how you can use AI, and some really will help you to grow on LinkedIn, and some really can destroy your reputation. So that's the dual part of AI.
Well, I think the general idea of technology, though, is you have to do it responsibly. So whether I use a technology tool to, for example, I'll give you a simple example: teleprompter. It's an app where you can have your words written on the screen and you record a video. Now, some people are using it, but they're doing it poorly. They're like, "This is my video. Here's what I have to say." It's like if you can't use it properly, it's going to fall apart. Similarly, AI or even video tools, if you can't use them properly, or even a slider. If I put together a slider, it just looks like crap. Like, what's the point of that? I saw an AI tool for carousel posts, and I looked at it and said, okay, well, I'm not sure I want to do this. I mean, for me, AI too, I'm the same way. I test and feed. I try to find the right hooks. I massage and manipulate it, and then I edit it in my own voice to make sure it makes sense for me. But you have to be very, very careful in terms of how you do that. So
Well,
go ahead.
there are AI tool, like there's an AI tool that can take this video, right, and create mini segments of this video that you could then cross post. So when we talk about AI, there's so many different ways in which we use it, and it can be used without it being the fake content creator.
Yeah, I mean, I use Opus Clip for
Yes.
summarizing all my live streams, and I wasn't doing. I had 150 live streams that I never did anything with, and now I have all this content. And again, I'm mostly using it on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube Shorts. Not even on LinkedIn. I'm doing a couple here, but it's been really helpful to expand my thought leadership. So that's great. Some more questions here coming up. This is for you, Hannah. How from Lynn Williams? How long does it take you to put together your summary Sunday?
So thank you for asking that, Lynn. Here's my secret. This is how I do it. I post on Twitter all week long. articles that I come across, things that I've written, whatever. And then what I do is I go to the Twitter analytics and I look at the posts that got the most engagement. And if I already read the article, I already love the content that I shared during the week. So all I do is look at the Twitter analytics and say, okay, these are the posts that other people responded well to. I'm going to feature those. So that takes me under 2 hours.
I love that. And again, this is a live stream brought to you by the Thought Leadership Branding Club. We have Hannah Morgan and Richard Van der Blom, and really glad to have you guys here. I actually I want to go back a little bit on a question that I think is really important, because I think I was talking about this earlier before we got on the call. When I got 500,000 followers on Twitter, people would see me or not want to reach out to me because they thought, oh, he's got 500,000 followers. He's like a busy person. I don't want to bother him. And so, like, look, 300,000 followers, Hannah, 188,000 followers, Richard. Like, people, I would say people are intimidated by you guys. They don't even want to reach out to you. I'm just saying, do I really want to bother her with a DM, and do I really want to bother them with stuff? I mean, what is your take on that? I'm just curious.
Go ahead, Richard. I've talked a lot.
You know, I was last week. I was traveling to Slovenia here in Europe, so I needed to take the plane from Valencia, and there was no direct flight, so I needed to go to Zurich. And I was standing in line in Zurich to board the plane Ljubljana when somebody came up to me and said, "Oh my God, you're Richard. Can I take a picture with you?" And I didn't have a clue what was going on. And also I didn't know the person. And the whole line, they turned and they were like, "Who is this guy? Why does somebody want to make a selfie?" And this guy said, "I'm a huge fan of you. I follow you on LinkedIn. Unbelievable. I see you here in Zurich. I wish you the best." And he took off with his selfie. And I was like, wow, this is like, but in general, I see a lot of people actually growing now on LinkedIn. So when I think about 3 years ago, when I saw someone with 100,000 plus followers, I was like, wow, this is a big shot. This is something that like unreachable. And now, I don't know, I'm on 180. I have a lot of people in my network that have even more, like Hannah, for example. I still get a lot of DMs, Bobby, where people say, "Can you do an analysis of my profile and also draw my content?" It's unbelievable. So it's actually, yes, I do think that some people don't want to bother me because they think I will not respond. And the people who send me genuine questions, and I hope not too many people are listening now, but I have one basic rule that is, if someone reaches out to me with a good question, genuine interest, I will always respond. Not within 24 hours, but I will always come back to you and say, "Hey, I saw your question on this and this. This is my answer." Okay. But just to, I think, protect myself, I've stopped responding to all incoming messages because some of them, they don't make sense. People from all over the world saying, "Can you do this for me? Can you help this? Can you send me money?" Because you like all those crazy things that also happen when people see that you have a big reach. So it's things from both worlds.
Yeah. I still am just a little person in my mind, right? So I respond to all of my own comments on my posts. I'm just me. And I remember that first time someone came up to me and said, "Oh my gosh, aren't you Hannah Morgan?" I'm like, "Yeah, why?" But that's not who I am. I'm just a regular person like anybody else out there trying to figure stuff out, right? So
I'll share a little story too, which is I was at a rock concert and some guy saw me. "Hey, Bobby, I follow you on Twitter." "Oh, okay." And he wanted to get a selfie. And my 13-year-old daughter, who would love Olivia Rodrigo, rolled her eyes at the idea that her dad is this guy he doesn't want to selfie with. But the other thing I'll share with you is way back in the early social media days when I really didn't have anything. I went to a social media a bar for like a gathering. And at the time, I had 400 Twitter followers, and there was this woman there who had 40,000 Twitter followers. And so I was like, "Oh my God, like, wow, 40,000, who are you?" And I walked up to her and I had a conversation, but I was actually trepidatious. But she told me something that was really, really insightful. And I say that to everybody. Every single social media person started at zero. And, there are the few who let it get to their head, but most of us are pretty grounded. So I think that's an important piece to understand. And yeah, go ahead.
We have to give a shout out to Brenda, because Brenda is the one who made that wonderful list of rock stars, who has
Yes.
risen through, who I deeply respect. And thank you, Brenda, for all you've done to elevate everybody and to educate. You're awesome.
There's another question from Joey Himmelfarb. Since it seems so many follow you, I'm curious, who are your favorite people to follow? Let me start this one. Richard, Hannah. No, because here's the thing. I actually am very clear. Like, there's a lot of people I follow, but there's a lot of people that I really, really follow, but I also highly respect. And I can count them on my fingers. Richard, Hannah, John Asperian, Richard Moore, Brenda Miller. That's my top 5 right there. Richard, what do you think?
Richard Moore is definitely my top 5. Alexander Lowe is, I don't know if you know him, he's an English guy. He publishes a lot about sales navigators. So for me, that's a trusted source to go to. I like the updates from Richard Bliss, who is also from the US. I like Jasmine Alich, because he's really good at what he does when it comes to copywriting. And well, you mentioned also John Asperian, who also has very insightful posts. And also Kevin Turner.
Kevin Turner's
Oh
on
yeah,
my list.
right,
Yeah.
Kevin. Good job.
Yeah, Kevin Turner's on my list. I'm going to add some people that probably won't mean a lot to other people, but I love Marie Zimenoff. With
Marie,
Career
sure.
Thought Leaders
Get
is
there.
awesome. She does such a great job and is in a lot of different ways helping. Lisa Rangel is somebody in the career space that I deeply, deeply respect. There's so many really talented people, Adrian Tom, that are in the career space. But here's the thing, and I think it's important. It's not important who we follow, it's why we're following them. And in my world, I follow people who are sharing great content, who understand the career space, because those are the people that I respect and value, right? To just follow random people, like if you can follow John Asperian or any of these other people, but if they're not talking about things that are important to you, then it doesn't serve you well. You can use them as an example of, okay, this is how they're posting and what they're posting about. But you have to have a reason to want to follow these people.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a real estate guru out there that talks real estate. I don't really care, but I'm
Right.
sure people love that person. And shout out to Marie Zinnemanoff, who's also one of the members of the Thought Leadership Brand Club. And again, if you want to learn about Thought Leadership Brand Club, go to our company page. You're following the stream. You can check out. We actually have a Zoom call at 4 p.m. this Thursday with Dan Mott talking about lead generation. So it's going to be a really good conversation. Going back to your, I'm here in your content strategy journey. Was there a point, I mean, as you've grown to where you are, was there a point where you felt, oh, you know what, hey, I'm onto something here? Like you had this like, kind of aha or epiphany, like, okay, you know what, like this post went well, or I got my first sale, or something's really working here. Like, can you maybe go back to when you felt that was happening for you?
Me or Hannah?
Hannah first, and we'll go to Richard.
No, I can't. I don't know. I'm too humble. I don't really remember. The only thing that I remember was when LinkedIn approached me and said, "Oh, we're going to make you a top voice for job search and careers." I'm like,
Sure.
"What? Why
Yeah.
would you do that? Like, I don't understand." So that was when I thought, "Oh, I guess," and that's where, quite honestly, a lot of my followers came from there. So there was that moment, right? That
Sure.
I didn't do it, somebody else did it, but it happened and it was great.
Now, I'll share mine first before Richard. So I was on Twitter, and then I was 6 months into Twitter. I had 5,000 followers, and then I got approached by an autism organization saying, "Bobby, we love what you talk about in terms of leadership and connection and things like that. Can you come in and do a training for us?" I'm like, "Sure." And I was like, "Wow, they hired me right off of Twitter. This is amazing." And so that to me is like, "Wow, okay, this social media thing, this content thing can really work." And so that was a really big moment for me, and that was early in my speaking career.
Cool.
Richard, what about you?
Yeah, so I will never become a LinkedIn top voice because I'm too critical on the platform, and it seems that they don't like that too much. Because, I think my reach really took off when I started to publish more and more on how to use the platform, which eventually became like the algorithm report. We started with that in 2019, 5 years ago, and that for me, the first thing or the first time we published that, it wasn't something that I was thinking of redoing every year. But then the next year, people kept asking, like, are you going to do it again this year? Because we see a lot of differences, a lot of changes. And I think, I don't know for sure, but I think 90% of the people on LinkedIn, they are following me probably because they just want to be informed about the algorithm. So it's not that I am that of an interesting person. It's just that they want to have the latest updates from, no, I'm true, Hannah, and it's fine with me. It also made me aware of my positioning myself as a thought leader, okay? Because I don't get any keynote speakers because I know about the algorithm. I want to get keynote because I know about social selling, lead generation, those kind of things. So suddenly a strength can also become something that's actually in the way of your own positioning. But for me, it took off with the launch of that, Bobby. So that's 5 years ago.
Yeah, and I would say that look, this year I got LinkedIn Top Voice, which really took me by surprise. Because to your point, I am very critical of LinkedIn about lots of things. I think the difference from what I've seen in the group that I'm part of now is that none of them are LinkedIn experts per se. So they're not so like I love you and I love Kevin Turner, but your primary things you talk about LinkedIn. And so I don't see any people doing that. Richard Moore, he talks about sales conversion, which is a more specific thing. So that's kind of what I've seen from the people that are part of that. And I'm certainly grateful that it happened. One thing I will add, though, is that people who are experts on a platform kill it on other platforms talking about that platform. So if you went to Twitter or Threads or whatever, and you talked about LinkedIn, they would love that because the people on those other platforms have no idea how to do the stuff on LinkedIn. So I'm just poking the bear and just mentioning that, but it's true. Okay.
Well, and I think one of the other things that thought leaders do is they look to surround themselves with other great people. So whether they create their own mini mastermind group or something else, like they surround themselves with really good people, and they meet offline or some other format to share ideas and to brainstorm and to do collaborative work, and that to me I think was one of the greatest things that I learned early in my career doing this, is that surround yourself with great people and you'll be set.
I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
I have another question for you guys, which is, in your current content strategy, is there anything that you struggle with still with your current content strategy? I mean, I think because I'm really big on authenticity and vulnerability, and now with the personal storytelling on LinkedIn, I love that because for me it fits with who I am. But I understand some people want to do less. But that said, I think it's really good to show people that we still struggle. So I'm curious if you guys can share. Is there anything you particularly, because people think you guys are amazing content creators, but is there anything you struggle with when it comes to your content creation or strategy? Let's go to Richard first.
Well, for me, I think the biggest thing is trying to be consistent. And I'm probably a victim of my own strategy because I don't know, but 2 years ago, I promised myself that I'm going to publish 5 or 6 times a week, and that my content needs to be authentic. It needs to be very valuable, and it's sometimes it's very difficult to every time find a new hook or a new angle or new knowledge or new tips to share, because sometimes I really think like I've shared it all. I've done all my tips, and what am I going to do? So sometimes I repurpose content. That's a way, or I co-create with other people because they give you another insight. But I would lie if I say that I very easily create 5, 6 unique posts every week. So I think consistency is still a challenge.
Can I agree with that? Because back in my earlier days, I would post Monday through Friday every day. I would put something on LinkedIn, and it was all important. Don't get me wrong; it wasn't fluff stuff. I was really putting stuff on there. And for the past 3 years, I've had a lot of weird stuff going on in my life. So for the past 3 years, I'm lucky if I do 2 posts a week. And sometimes I don't even do that. So I agree. Being consistent, whatever that consistency looks like for you. I mean, I loved it when I posted 5 times a week. It was easy for me to do. I can't do that today. I just don't have the same bandwidth. And plus there's the commenting that becomes important, and then responding to comments and reaching out and being, responding to other people's posts that they've posted. So there's a lot more that I'm doing that takes more time, that zaps some of my creativity.
I think for me, the hardest part of content strategy currently for me is the mental well-being piece because one is, having become LinkedIn top voice, I'm feeling a compelling need to post, as well as I feel weird when I critique LinkedIn. So I'm a little bit nervous about that. Getting notifications, responding to comments, all that kind of stuff, your mind kind of goes in different places. So I turn off the phone or I turn off my notifications and trying to find that balance because one of the things I'm trying to do purposely is I'm trying not to go to LinkedIn every day. Like there are people who are here every single day, and I just personally don't think that's healthy for me or anyone else. And I know people might disagree with me, but I'm like, you know what? I'm purposely going to not go on LinkedIn at least 2 or 3 days a week. On days when I'm purposely commenting and posting, sure, I'm there. But I just want to take a break because I just think it's just a lot. And so for me, the mental well-being piece is, I think, hard. I mean, do you guys ever? I mean, how do you feel about that in terms of the mental wellness? How do you keep your how do you avoid burnout? Like, I'm curious what you guys do about that.
Well, I'm obviously not very good at avoiding burnout because I have had to. So, and the life work balance, I like to call it life work and not work life balance, because life should be the first one to mention. But life work balance, I think, and I also see it around me. A lot of people struggle with finding the balance, including myself. And after the first burnout, I said, like, this is never going to happen to me again, because now I know, all the rules of the game. It happened again. The only thing is, I felt it coming. I just let it happen. I recovered from it more quickly because I went through it. But, I'm still not there that I can say I find a balance. And actually, promising myself to be active on LinkedIn 6 days a week probably is not the best way to prevent like a mental burnout from LinkedIn, because when we discussed the large followers, and I don't know if Hannah has the same, but I can simply not keep up with all the notifications I get. It's impossible. I get literally 1,000 a day, mentions, responses, comments, notifications from LinkedIn. And still every day I get 3 or 4 messages one-on-one from people say, I mentioned you this morning in my post and you didn't comment. And I go like, I didn't saw it. How do you think I can keep up with that? And that's also, so some people think you're arrogant or you are not taking care of your network because you're not responding, but please, some people cannot keep up with all the notifications. LinkedIn is also not helping because I think they could do a better job in notifying us or making it more easy to follow up. So long story short, Bobby, it's a very good question, and I'm not the best to answer that question.
I think everyone in that comment needs to say, it's okay, Hannah, it's okay, Rich, it's okay, Bobby. Just keep being you. Don't worry about that. So put your comments in there. Give some support to these people. This is a support group for us. Hannah, what are you going to say?
And I was going to say that burnout is absolutely real. I think it started for me around COVID, and I really have never gotten back to the old swing of the way I used to be. It's a new normal for me as well. But I started taking Fridays off, and I think that was a great thing for me. So I don't check email. I don't check social. I'm not on Fridays, and I just giving that 1 day break, I think, gives me the longer weekend, a little bit more time for myself and family and stuff that's going on. So that's I'm not going to beat myself up over it, right? I can't
Yeah.
it, but we do need to just be aware that burnout is happening, and each person is going to have a different thing that works for them.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, I think that we can only be, we have to be mindful of our capacity and what we can do. And I think taking those breaks goes a long way. And here's Gerard saying, it's okay, you're only humans,
Right.
and so I think people are here to support us, which is great. See, people are giving us grace. Marnie's giving us grace, which is good. Now, before we get to the end of this thing, because we only have a few more minutes left, I wanted to ask you about some particular strategies. I mean, like, obviously a lot of people don't do content. So like, I think last time Richard mentioned the algorithm report, there was such a large percentage of people who don't create content. Now, sometimes I'll say, well, why don't just do commenting and things like that. But when it comes to just getting started, I mean, what would be your best advice for someone to just really just get started on putting content out there? Hannah, we'll start with you, then we'll go to Richard.
I think it depends on what your occupation is and but usually if there are questions that people always ask you, right? What's the best way to job search? What's the best thing to post on LinkedIn? Whatever. That question that more and more people are asking you that usually makes a good post, an answer for that. So frequently asked questions. Or if there was a post that you made and there were a lot of questions after that, maybe a follow-up to your initial post. A day in your life, always sounds weird, but people like to understand who you are and how you act as a human being and how you schedule your life. I'm sure Richard has a huge, long list of content ideas. Here's my little post-it note. I'm gonna hope nobody reads it, but I have a post-it note on my wall with these are the things that I'm going to post about this week. Not very scientific.
What about you, Richard?
Yeah, sorry to disappoint Johanna. I don't have a long content list. I actually don't have a content calendar. I work very impulsive, and what I think, I can literally block tomorrow morning 2 hours and say tomorrow morning I'm going to write content, and really nothing comes out of my head. It's like I'm blocked, okay? And I can be busy doing the most impossible things, and then suddenly I get this brainwave and I say, I need to write about this. So I think what really helps is to get a system where you can catch your ideas, whatever it is that you are doing. So for example, I have this normally whenever I go out, I always have my phone. So if I'm walking my dog, yeah, exactly. So if I'm walking my dog and I get this brainwave, the only thing I do, I just talk to myself. I just speak about the title, save it, that's it. Or whenever I'm in my car, I have this app, I turn it on, I speak, this is my ID. And then once I feel ready for it, I go to this voice apps. I also have another app, but I check those resources that I created myself, and then I start writing. And also a very good thing is that my content process is never that I write from scratch to the end and publish it in the same moment. So first I catch my ideas, then I start writing my drafts, then I leave my drafts for another 1 or 2 days, and then I look again at it, and then I publish it. But in the process, I always have 5 to 7 posts that at any minute could go live. So that's a bit of my content process.
Can I ask you a question, Richard? I'm sorry. Where do you do your drafts? Do you do those in Google Docs or some other platform?
No, I use Autodop. Autodop is a tool that I use and that I find very helpful to save my drafts, because it's also the place where I normally write and publish my posts.
I'll tell you my process. I'm also very impulsive. And now I have a weekly events post that I do but it's either Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. It depends on what I'm feeling. But typically, I just think of something. I have thousands of ideas in my head. I've done thousands of tweets and thousands of videos. I've done thousands of stuff. So, a lot of times there's people who repurpose content. I'm just doing the same content again and again, but I refresh. I do a new video, and usually my ideas come in the shower. So I'm in the shower and I think, okay, what do I want to talk about today? Okay, I'll have to do that, and then I have in my head. I go over here. My tripod's back there. I then just record it and I just post it, and that's kind of what I would do. And I'm really trying to be mindful of not worrying so much about the engagement and the likes and the comments. It's just I'll put it out there. If people engage, great. If they don't worry about it. I'm just trying to provide value for folks, and that's kind of my part.
Yeah, and there's another important thing that I really want to share with the listeners or the viewers, and that's it's our human nature that if you get 90 comments and you get 80 positive comments and you get 6 negative comments, that we trend to look at only the negative and feel very bad about our posts, about our reactions. I am 100% a guy like that. I can really get 200 comments, say great algorithm research, great work, and one saying nah, it's bullshit, it's impossible, and I go crazy about a negative comment. I really needed to reprogram myself and go nah, don't pay any attention. If he does it with me, he does it with other people, and that's just the style of those people. So if you start publishing content on LinkedIn, it's very important. Focus on the positive energy and don't let the negative energy drain you, because there's a lot of that going on currently on LinkedIn.
Don't feed the trolls. Don't feed the trolls.
Well, and that's a shout out to the people who are doing some very, very provocative content. Like Liz Libo, for example, she's a LinkedIn influencer, and she talks about social justice and about promoting Black women. And but one of the things that happens with her posts, because they're always very provocative and social justice, she gets a lot of negative comments. And so what happens is it takes a lot of emotional toll, which she's talked about. And so I think it takes a lot of courage to do that, because there is a lot of weight behind that. I mean, when I don't do very many political or social justice posts, but I do them. I mean, the first one I ever did on LinkedIn was around George Floyd, and there were definitely people saying really, really crappy things. But in that case, I wanted to engage them publicly, because I was like, this is an important thing, and you should know about this. But yeah, but I think, again, to Richard's point, yeah, we definitely get caught up with the negative comments, and why do you think that way? What's going on? What's the feedback? I'm curious. And so
Exactly.
we have to be mindful of that for sure. All right. Well, listen, this has been a great conversation. And again, there's so many people still listening into this thing, which is awesome. I wanted to at least give you guys a chance to share a bit about your work, or maybe promote yourself. So, Hannah, how can people follow you? How can they support you? Let us know.
Yeah, so Lynn Williams mentioned my Summary Sunday, which is my newsletter, which I send out once a week. And it is for those people that are interested in job search related tips, or the voices that are talking about job search. My Summary Sunday is, I should throw a link in there somewhere, but I'll find a link. Oh, I don't know where to find it. I'll send it to you. Summary Sunday is on my website, careersherpa.net. You can subscribe there. But I hope you follow me, but I want them to follow Richard and you too, Bobby, because you guys are doing wonderful work.
Well, thanks. Richard, tell everyone how they can follow you and how they can support you.
Yeah, so I guess it's not a secret that my main channel is LinkedIn. So for those who are not following me yet, feel free to follow me. Like Hannah, I have an email newsletter, which I send out twice a month. It's on how to use LinkedIn for business growth. So whether it's to increase your visibility or leads, or basically how to use LinkedIn to its fullest potential for you as an entrepreneur or salesperson or marketer. And if people see my content, like I think every content creator, I value engagement, I value your questions, your feedback. So yeah, basically that's it.
That's great. Thanks, guys. And for everyone else, if you don't know, I'm doing a workshop for TEDx, how to land a TEDx talk on Thursday. If you want to come by, you totally can. And listen, it's 5 hours of training, plus you get access to a community group, exercises. And yes, it costs money. It's only $100, but compared to my hourly rate, it's a steal. So take advantage of that. I had someone the other day say, "It's $100." I'm like, well, guys, it's like 10 hours of my time and all my intellectual property, but whatever, that's fine. I mean, you don't want to pay for it, you don't want to pay for it, that's fine. But check that out. And then, of course, TLB Club, our membership prices are going up. And so you want to come by. We have weekly trainings, weekly coaching calls. We have a library of master classes, an amazing, amazing community. The one coming up on Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern is going to be with Dan Mott talking about leveraging sales and lead generation. So with that, final thoughts from you guys on content strategy for thought leaders. We'll start with you, Hannah, and then we'll go to Richard.
So 2 things: do the right thing for the right reason. Right? We're here to
Yep.
help one another. So do the right thing for the right reason, and just celebrate your wins, because when they happen, they're important, and don't overlook them.
Awesome. Richard.
For me, it's a very short one. As a real thought leader, you should support other people to also stand out on LinkedIn and to also become a thought leader in the future.
Oh, you kind of stole what I was going to say, which is the best thought leaders are the ones who build and support community. And what happens is, a thought leader will have a community here. They may have a community on Twitter or other platforms. But a big part of it is supporting those communities. Like, what are you doing to support that community and the ones that you're a part of? And I think that, to me, is a big part of thought leadership, because you're basically sharing conversations, you're sharing insights, you're supporting people, and you're helping one another grow. Like, one of my big philosophies is that, a rising tide lifts all boats. And so for me, that's kind of how I like to operate with what I'm doing, and I make myself very accessible. And most people know I'm quite responsive to messages. Like Hannah was saying that too. I'm very responsive, because I don't want to have a buildup of unread stuff. So everything was responded to right away, and I have like no notifications on my phone at all. Like it's all completely, they're all taken care of. So with that, if you have more questions for us, feel free to put a question in the feed, tag us, but don't expect us to respond because we don't see everything. Okay, but if you want to, you can certainly engage with questions, share these on your posts, and let folks know what we're up to. Richard and Hannah, thank you so much for your time. We do appreciate it. Make sure you follow these two. They're doing some great stuff. And thank you so much. Everyone else, take care. We'll see you guys next month. We're doing a conversation on building genuine, authentic relationships. And I believe it's going to feature Neeraj Kapoor and Janai Iqbal and Ariel Lee. So that'll be the third. It's always the third, like Tuesday or Wednesday of the month. That's in June. And that's coming up soon. All right. Thanks, everybody. So long.
Thank you.
Take care.